Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the DJ Sessions Presents the Virtual Sessions. I'm your host Darren, and right now I'm sitting in the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington, and coming in not too far away from our own hometown is Tyler Stone coming in from Portland, Oregon. Tyler, how you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I know this is a long time coming. We reached out to you, you reached out to us. We made this happen, and I'm super excited because you're a fan at something that is near and dear to my heart, and you do this disco music. I love it so much. I've loved it since I was a kid. I was listening to one of your mixes just before the show and definitely getting pumped up before it. We'll be talking about that in a
Yeah,
little bit. But Tyler, you have been in the industry for a while now, and you
couple minutes.
also, let's see, I mean, you actually went to college here in Seattle, correct?
Yeah, I went to Cornish College of the Arts. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was actually still when I first started going there, it was still the Institute. It was still Cornish Institute, and then it switched over to Cornish College. Um, and yeah, I studied music and graduated, and it was a very different place when I went there than it is now. So I've been to the new campuses. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I'm a Seattle native, so one of the last. But yeah, I definitely know that I have had a few friends of mine over the years that have gone to Cornish for different arts, lighting, design, dance, all the
Yeah,
fun stuff there.
yeah.
But
It's an
yeah, so and
amazing
then
place.
after that, you relocated to San Francisco, my second favorite city in the world, the only city I'll ever move to if I move away from Seattle. If I have to move and have to relocate, it'll be San Francisco.
Yeah.
But Seattle's doing pretty well for itself right now. But you moved to San Francisco and got involved with the scene there. Can you tell us a little bit about what was that like entering the process back then, entering into the music industry back then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the, there's this whole mythology, I think, around the 90s, which it's not really a mythology. I mean, we did have it was magic. It was truly magic, a magic time in San Francisco, especially my friends and I used to pinch ourselves and be like, we're in something really special right now. Like this doesn't just happen. Like we knew when we were experiencing it that it was pretty magic, that the club scene was thriving, and every time you turned around there was a new club opening with a new offshoot of a different genre, and like you could go out any given night. There were like five or six places to go that were like, which genre do you want? Like tourists used to stop me on the street and go, I want to go to the club. And I'd be like, well, do you want house music or drum and bass or down tempo or like the techno, or like I'd start listing off. So if you want that, you go over here. And if you want that, you go over there. So there was just opportunities abound, right? Because there was just so much going on. Everybody was going out to the clubs. It seemed like the whole world would be at the club. It didn't matter what you had to do to get up and go to work the next day. I couldn't figure out how half these people were doing it. And before 4 a.m., I was like, oh, I got to be in court at 8. I got to go. Like, oh my God. But that was kind of the life back then. So you were just immersed in the music and immersed in the sound, and you kind of just you could not go anywhere without hearing a four on the floor kick, basically at the time.
We got a great question right early on from one of our viewers, Siri Tog, which is, what was your strongest motivation to pursue a career in music for you?
You know, I think I came out of the womb wanting to do music. As far as back as I can remember, I can't remember a time when I didn't want to do music. I'd see it being played. I would just glue to the TV if there was music on, or if there was like we'd go to a park and there was music. I mean, I was like, how? Like it was just magic to me. So I had to figure it out from the day I was born. Oh, I must take piano lessons. So I did piano lessons. And oh, I need, oh, I'll learn the guitar. Oh, I'll take flute and band. I mean, anything I could get my hands on, right? And then I had the opportunity to go to Cornish and study jazz, and so it just kept evolving. But it was really just like, how do I make that sound? How do I do it? It was all just about how, and more. So
Was it did you start, being one of the first female house producers in the US, did you start with hardware based? Was it a lot of like synths and hardware rack
Oh,
mounts? Or were you
yeah, it
diving?
was
Were you given some of the early on technology, and were you in computer based DAWs back
it
then?
was right into the computer. I this is where I really was super fortunate is when I arrived in San Francisco, it really was DJ EFX who lured me down there and said, because I'd already figured out, oh, this house music thing, I gotta do more of this. So he was like, you gotta come down to San Francisco. He and his buddy Digit and a bunch of people started this Third Floor Productions. And there are a bunch of different studios up there. Everyone was just renting a room, making music. And Performer is what everyone was using, not digital performer, Performer. There was
Performer.
no digital. And so they were also, they had a mix show, so they were getting a lot of remixes in. So I just kind of fell into all of that. I arrived in San Francisco. This is all going on around me. I'd show up at the studio and Raul would be like, here's an extra computer. You sit here. This is how it works. You know how to play piano. And it just kind of evolved from one thing to the next until they were like, here, why don't you try a remix too? And it was sink or swim pretty much, like throw me in the deep end and see what you can do.
I always love it. Somehow I don't know how it works, but either my audience is telepathic and they know what I'm thinking, or the guest is telepathic and knows what question I'm going to basically ask next. But the next question I want to ask you, which comes from WS Denante, I hope I say these names right, is if you could describe your music in 3 words, what would 3 words would you use? What would you call it?
It is well, actually, it's kind of my tagline. So it's 3 words though. Okay, let me condense it. Uplifting, soothing, inspirational.
Uplifting, soothing, inspirational. And I was just listening to the latest release you did, Don't Count Me Out, featuring the Gem Fatales.
The Gem Fatales, yes.
Gem Fatales. Were they the ones that wasn't didn't have a music video done for that one, did you?
Yeah, there's a
Was
video.
that the one in the roller skates?
Yeah,
Yeah. Was that the
Those
Gem
are the
Fatales?
girls. Yeah, that's the
That
Gem
was
Fatales.
awesome.
Aren't they
Okay, cool.
great?
Yeah, that was really, really awesome. I was listening to both the different mixes, the disco house radio edit, and then the original radio edit. And listening to the disco house radio edit first was kind of really, it was pumping me up. I was like, a little faster, a little upbeat, a little upbeat. And then I listened to the radio and I'm like, this is actually just fits the exact 3 words you just said right there. And I'm like, but I love the difference between the two because I'm such a huge disco fan. Being born in the 70s and growing up, my brothers went to rock music. I kind of went more towards the popular, which was the disco music at the time. I mean, rock and disco were popular, but I liked Michael Jackson. I was
Yep.
big fan of Saturday Night Fever.
Yep.
Of Chic. Good
Yep.
Times.
Yep.
All of those disco hits. I mean, one of my favorite songs is "Forget Me Nots."
Oh yes,
I just that one. I don't care what I'm doing. I tell my friends. Yep. I tell anyone I've ever been with or been around. I tell them, look, if I'm mad, do me a favor, just play some 70s disco or some 80s pop, and I will say, I'm not mad anymore. Not mad anymore.
It's so feel good.
And I'll just start dancing,
it
and
just
having fun.
So feel good. Yeah. So
absolutely.
That's I think for me, especially when I just started retargeting, like what do I want to focus on? That was what I wanted to focus on. It was like music that just makes you feel good, and like you can't deny how good you feel when you're listening to it, right? Like there's just no other way that you can feel. Like you're done. Anger gone.
I can't be mad. I can't be mad. I'm like,
I can't be mad. I can't be frustrated. I can't be freaked out. I can't be any of it. I'm just good now. So
exactly. And tell us a little bit about the premise or the meaning to you behind "Don't Count Me Out." What does that track mean to you? What does that song mean to you? Or the message
mean lyrically, or the message?
Or the message you're trying to convey for "Don't Count Me Out."
Okay. Well, I didn't write the lyrics. Elan wrote the lyrics. She's amazing, by the way. Elan Noel is the song. She wrote the lyrics and is one of the vocalists, 3 vocalists, one of the sisters. But I mean, I just think it's such a great song because it's just like don't, don't count me out. I've got all the things you're looking for here. So, you know, I mean, it's a simple little catchy tune that is also, the thing I like about it, it's kind of like the negative and the positive. It's like putting the positive spin on the negative, right? Like, you
Mhm.
think you don't want me, but here's all the reasons you do.
It's funny. I recently found myself in a relationship and looking at it, going at my partner, saying, "You meet all the bars." Every single one. It's really awesome. She's just so great, and it's been phenomenal going through that experience with somebody and not having to not have a bar met or have something met. So you said kind of turn that positive into negative and
Right,
let them grow.
right.
It's kind of very interesting. But you mentioned who did the vocals on that track? It
It's
was
it's the Gem Patels.
Jem
So the three
Patel's, but
sisters. So it's Ilan and her sister Reina and
a lot.
their sister Nile.
Awesome.
So it's Reina, Nile, and Ilan. So they are a tour de force.
And you love working with vocals.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and who you've worked with in the past. Who's been the out of everyone you've worked with in this? I know always gets some people in trouble all the time. Who's been the most favorite person you worked with in the past,
Well, here's
or
the thing.
yeah,
I so rarely get to actually work with someone in the actual studio. Like, almost my whole life, it's been vocals are sent to me, vocals are sent to me.
okay,
So me getting to work with someone is me like pulling up their tracks and being like, ooh, that's juicy. Ooh, that's good. I love this. You know, um, I got to tell you, when these sisters sent me their stuff, I was mind blown because they sent me like, I don't know, 48, 50, like full on like R&B style, like
wow,
tracks that I had to sift through and kind of figure out, all right, well, here's the lead and here's the ad libs and here's the stacked vocal harmonies for the chorus, and this one's going to do this and that one's going to do that. And I mean, so it was an amazing project to work on for that reason. But if you want to talk about just also vocals you get in, Judy Cheeks has, and do you remember Judy Cheeks? This is
sounds
no wait.
familiar. Sounds
Was she
familiar.
real deal? Positiva. She came out on Positiva. The remix I did for her was on Popular Records. It was called "You Bring Me Joy." Um, just such a, like, again, when you talk about like you hear a voice and it just like lifts you up out of any place that you've been. Like, her voice just mesmerized me. So
Awesome. And you consider yourself not you don't consider yourself a DJ that's a producer. You're a producer that's a DJ.
yeah,
Is that how it started for you? Was you were producing tracks before you started DJing? Or
absolutely.
was it just
In fact, to the point where I was like, people kept offering me DJ gigs. I'm like, I don't DJ, And I really didn't have any desire to DJ either. I was like, well, I mean, I suppose I could, but and then it just kept coming and coming and coming at me. I mean, and this is years went by where I was like, no, I just produce. And then finally I was like, oh, what the hell, I'll DJ. So I got a gig. A friend of mine was like, oh, it's super easy, like low key, chill, like restaurant style. No one's really listening kind of a thing. You can mess up if you need to. All right, I can do that. I'll just bring all my records. Oh, and that was it. People would send me promo records. So I had like stacks and stacks of records, right? So I was like, okay, how hard can this be? Right. I mean, it's not like I have never sat down and like played with a turntable, and I'd had my little DJ lessons from my friends and everything. And so I knew what I was doing well enough. So, yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then I started going, oh, I kind of like this. This is really cool. And then when I started really DJing was when I really started realizing how much a part of my production it became. It became my R&D. It became my inspiration. It changed the way that I approached a mix, perhaps. And because when you're like digging into other people's mixes and you're really listening with a critical ear as opposed to just like dancing on the dance floor, it you start to see, oh, I see, oh, they did that, oh, that was cool, oh, I need to do something like that, and so you start getting really inspired by it too. So it's, but I have such mad respect for DJs because I was around so many amazing ones that it's like I think I have a bit of imposter syndrome with the DJ thing. It's like,
Do you think that DJs should learn music theory, or does it matter that much when it comes to dance music and DJs playing?
I think theory always matters. I think some people are incredibly talented and have an ear, and they're able to get by without it, and they just hear things. And so in that case, I don't think it's always needed, but I think so many people think, oh, I don't need it. But guess what? You're not that talented. You do need it. Like, I mean, so for me personally, I don't think I'm that talented. I love having theory to back myself up on, a little bit, and understand what I'm hearing, and so I can just reach for things very easily. When I'm hearing something in my head, I know, oh, that's a minor 7 flat 5 or whatever, so or rhythmically or timbre wise or whatever, it definitely comes in handy. So I would always say, yeah, if you can get it, if if you first track blew up to number 1, you might not need it.
That would always be awesome if everyone's tracks just blew up to number one, but there's only so
Right?
many number one spots in the world. And speaking about DJing, you recently just launched something on Mixcloud,
Yeah.
All That Glitters. You know what I thought about when I just thought about All That Glitters. You know what just popped in my head? And I'm looking at it right now over on Mixcloud because it's at the top of it's in your top bar. And I'm looking at the graphic. Solid gold.
Yes.
That's exactly what pops in my head when I see that. I
I
just
think
thought about
that's
it,
what
like,
I was envisioning. I told my
yeah,
husband, so my husband does all my graphics. He's a graphic
yeah.
designer, and I said, this is what I'm picturing, something like this, and I gave him some fonts to kind of sort of look at, and that is exactly, I think, where I was coming from. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, and then do you title each of these as a different genre, or is it All That Glitters? Your latest one is Discotheque. Is
Yeah, so
that the
that's
title of
launched
that
it.
one, or is
The
that
next one, I'm going to do is based on the one that we just did. So it's going to be Heatwave, and then
okay?
after that, the one I've got coming up is going to be Summer Sizzler. So I'll just have fun with the names, really. So, and it's really just more about like each one. It was kind of also backing up. I mean, the whole point of the doing the DJ mixes was that I wasn't playing out anymore, and I wanted to be playing out, but we were still in the thick of COVID. And I came up with this concept when everything was still really shut down. And I knew I didn't want to do Twitch. That just didn't feel like me. So I was like, well, I guess I don't have to do it live. I can just come up with a concept and put it out there. And also I was doing so many remixes at the time. I really wanted to feature all the remixes that I'd been doing. And I thought, well, why don't I just do one as I bring these remixes out? I can just also create this mix and kind of be like, and here's all the songs, kind of like when you do your top 10, right? Your chart on Beatport or TrackSource. So you do your chart. So then I'm like, well, why not do a whole mix with my chart? So that's what I've been doing. I'm doing the chart and then taking the chart and doing the mix, which you end up not being able to use quite everything from the chart because you can't hear the whole song and they don't always work together, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. But so yeah, so then like do the mix and just have it be the whole process. So make the music, create the thing that the music goes into so that someone is not just listening to your track, but listening to your track as it was meant to be played amongst other tracks. So
Mhm. Absolutely.
that's the long answer.
And the next one that you have coming out is called Heatwave, but we have that as an exclusive
Yes.
TDJS mix that'll
Yes.
be put in
So
right
I'm
out
holding
along with
back
this.
on that for you
Yeah.
guys. So I'm
Thank you
holding
so
back
much
on
for
it.
that. We love it. We can't wait to get it up and out there. It'll be up probably tonight, if not
Cool.
tomorrow. We'll get it up right with along with this interview. But how would you define success as a producer? I mean, you have a long history of doing this. Nowadays, would it be a Beatport top 10? What would be your successes? That it just you finished it and it got out there? It actually got off the computer to the
I have,
world. That's a
I have,
success.
I have a much higher standard than that. Um, I mean, for me, but to your point, there are varying levels of success, right?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, because if you just say, oh, it's only successful if I if I'm like flying in a jet to my next gig, you might be disappointed in the fact that that track didn't get you on your jet to your next gig. So you want to set enough, every little thing is a success. So like, oh, like I got a feature. I got on the best new disco. I got in this top 10. I got like all those things count. Every single one of those things counts because, or one of my favorite ones, quite frankly, is somebody DMing you and going, I'm listening to this and it just changed my life. Or I was feeling shitty and I'm happy now. Like those those are like some of the best successes right there. So yeah, all of it. I mean, ultimately, to be able to get up every morning and not worry about whether or not I can pay my rent because I've made enough music that's supporting me, that's a huge success. So, but yeah, I mean, sitting next to a pool looking out over the ocean with my studio behind me, like that wouldn't suck.
Yeah, I definitely. It's hard to measure. When somebody says what determines success for like myself, what do I measure that against? Is
Right.
it how many episodes I produced? Is it had so many people on the show? Is it that I'm doing what I love to be doing, and maybe getting
But
paid for it?
right. But it's
And
all of
essentially,
it,
like,
right? It's all of
yeah,
it,
it's all of it. I
like
mean, it's relative, but the one thing, it's if there we do have like there is a standard though. Like when I used to go to broadcast television, if you submitted a bad quality tape or a bad quality episode, they wouldn't accept it if it wasn't up to FCC standards, or there was standards you had to have. And once the internet came about, and YouTube opened the floodgates, and podcasting, video podcasting opened the floodgates, and you had internet distribution, and there were no checks and balances. We saw
right,
this in public access television as well. There were no standards. There was a gentleman that would put on late night on public access. He would put pornography on. And it was one of the
right,
longest running shows on public access because they didn't have that FCC barrier
right.
there
The
that
regulation.
would
Yeah.
prevent you from actually taking something. Even if you had a decent television show, it still had to go to the networks. But the big barrier to entry there was you had to pay for your time slots. You had to
Yes.
buy your time unless you got picked up by the stations or
Hmm.
picked up by like a major syndicator or
Right.
distributor, like one of the major networks. And that really doesn't happen at a local level. They usually just steal your idea and then go produce it and do it themselves. But that being said, there was a big barrier entryway there, and same with like vinyl. You know, there was only 10,000 or so, 50,000 so records produced. So as a vinyl DJ, you couldn't just say, I want to be a DJ. You'd have to go buy tracks. But if somebody had the
Right.
hottest track, they had that one record, maybe 5 people in the city had that one record, or 10 people had that record, depending on how big the city was. And nowadays in a digital age, you'll get all the DJs in the world, you'll get 1 million downloads of that track.
Right.
And everyone
Right.
has it in their arsenal.
Right.
It's not like the gunslinger, you got 2 guns, there's 6 shooters, you got six
Yeah, but
million shooters. Like,
that's the difference between the DJ and the producer, because the
yeah,
producer wants 1 million downloads.
yeah,
The
exactly.
DJ might want to have the only version, and then guess what? Go make your own edit, which I do a lot. But um, you want the music to get out there. But to your point, also with music, what happened is we stopped having the curators too, and what happened with us is in addition to having a lot of not so great music put out because there was no barrier to entry, because anybody can put music out now, by not having the curators, you get buried in all the other stuff out there, and so picking through and um, trying to find the good stuff becomes more and more difficult, which I think is why I feel like, what Beatport and TrackSource have done has been such a great service to the DJs. And first of all, just cherry picking out the dance music. And so here's the dance music, and here's the genres, even though they have incredibly different names for the same genres. This is this over here and that's that over there. Okay, you got that figured out. But also, in their features and in their ways that they're able to uplift, and point you to places and not always have to point you to the same place over and over. It's not like you're going to every chart and everything and getting the same 10 songs over and over again. Like, it's really, they've made it really a joy and a pleasure to shop. So,
Mhm. Yeah, one of the questions I quite frequently ask on the show is, Beatport has such a monopoly on the game. Do you think they can maintain a monopoly, or will there be another competitor that will come up and out? Somebody mentioned that there used to be TrackSource. I think you mentioned TrackSource as well.
mhm.
And I was in an interview, I think last week, and they go, "Is TrackSource still even around?" And I had to go online. I was like, "Yep, TrackSource is still there."
I think it's
You know?
incredibly, like, especially with certain genres. I mean, I know DJs that only shop track source. It's
Mhm.
just it. I think you have each one of them has found their niche and who they're serving. I mean, Beatport tends to do more the kind of very, very well-known stuff and maybe the more commercially driven stuff, whereas Track Source tends to be more underground. And
Mhm.
that does not mean you can't find commercial stuff on Track Source and you
Yeah.
can't find underground on Beatport. They're all there.
Mhm.
So I just think they each has found their own niche and they know who they're serving and they're doing a good job. And is there room for someone else to come along? Probably, and they may find their own niche and their way of kind of setting themselves apart from the other two. So,
hmm One of the things I thought was really cool, we recently had the opportunity to be interviewed by 1001 Track Lists, and that
oh
format
wow,
and how that all works out, as these DJs are making their mixes and they're playing them out in clubs or playing them in their radio or podcast series or live streams, and then they submit that mix to 1001 Track List. You kind of see who's really being played out there, and you can't.
right,
They have a system in place. You can't just not anyone can just submit. You have to kind of be vetted a little bit, and the track that you're submitting has to be vetted before it can be included in there. But they keep like this. I thought it was really interesting. They kept a comprehensive report that they make every year on what the hottest trend is and what they see being played. And Tech House happened to be the largest one. I believe last year was Tech House, then House, and then Trance. But techno is making a comeback, and I've heard through the grapevine, breakbeats is kind of making kind of some
oh, that
headway there
makes
as
sense.
well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
Yeah,
you're kind of watching this pie chart over. If you could
yeah,
animate it, watch this pie chart kind of move, and see where things are going. But
yeah.
I have some friends of mine up here. Do you know Ricardo Torres?
I
Does that
don't
name sound
know.
familiar? He's new
No.
disco DJ, my disco, your disco. I ran into him from my friend Ajax here and also Alex Harrington. They're really big, like discotheque, disco,
Nice,
house disco,
nice.
new disco DJs. Really love it when they
Yeah,
play. But what would you consider the biggest break that launched your producer career was?
going to San Francisco. I mean, hey,
Really?
I mean, I wouldn't even have a career if I hadn't, if VFX had not said, come down here and hang out. We're doing this thing. I mean, I may have still found my way to dance music somehow, but I mean, to have an opportunity like that, I didn't even know that it was an opportunity when I took it. I just was like, that sounds like a good idea. I'll go to San Francisco. Um, and I knew it was something. I didn't know what it was. In fact, I thought, quite honestly, when he first told me to come down, I thought he was going to produce my record and I was going to sing because I was just singing at the time. I wasn't even producing. I was just singing and writing. So, um, yeah, that whole thing changed the trajectory of everything for me.
Who's been your biggest influence when it comes to your career as an artist, and why?
Biggest influence. I don't know if I have a biggest influence. I have people from a career perspective who've just kind of always been there helping me, like even before I went to Seattle or to San Francisco. I was in Seattle at Nasty Mix Records, and there was my buddy Ramon Wells was there, and he now has dot 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 records out of Miami. But he saw that I had a keen interest in the business and kind of took me under his wing, And he's the reason I went to my very first Winter Music Conference. So that was big.
What what year was that?
90, 91, somewhere in there. It
Okay.
wasn't even in Miami yet. It was still in Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, and it was like, like I swear to God, there was like maybe 200 people there, and Jelly Bean Benitez was there, and David Morales was there, and Frankie Knuckles. I mean, I got schooled so hard. It was like, here they are. This is it. And
Awesome.
then I met this really wonderful friend of mine who I've known through the years, uh, Monsieur Zonzon, DJ Pierre Zonzon. Um, so coming back full circle, I went to Winter Music Conference, hadn't been in an eons, and I went after they relaunched it, ran into Pierre, who's also in Miami, and he's a big part of the reason that I started knocking out all these disco mixes, because he kept having remixes for me. He's like, oh, well, here, do this mix, do this mix. I'm like, it's got to be disco. Okay, do disco. So, um, so people like that come in and out of your life, and they affect you in ways that are, just huge. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember it was our first Winter Music Conference my first Winter Music Conference was 2009, and is where I met Dave Dresden.
oh
And
yeah,
I managed to get in contact with his PR person, who also does the PR for Carl Cox. They're besties,
right.
together for years. So I was hooked up and was doing kind of a circuit interview and met Dave Dresden. And then out of that conference, it was the idea. A DJ had come to me and told me about the idea of streaming DJs live online. And I'm like, this is 2009. I've looked into it. I run internet radio stations and I know what the bandwidth costs are. And streaming video, that's just insane of what it's going to cost to do that. And he goes, no, there's
Right.
this company called Ustream, and you set up an account, and it lets you use your webcam, and you can stream live to Ustream. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't think that's not that's not an idea. That's not going to work. Who's going to watch it? I was kind of not negative, Nancy. I wanted to support his idea, but it was later that year that I actually did a live stream show of my broadcast series. And I found that the easiest portion to do is when we took a station break or a break, I had the DJ playing for 30 minutes. And when I came back
Ah,
after that show, I said, that was the easiest part. I had 8 separate television shows at the time. And I said, that's the easiest part of the show was to produce, because it was just the DJ playing music with some cameras on them. So then I reached out to a friend of mine, and we started bouncing the idea around that summer. And we started the show September ish of 2009. And it was a couple months later, we circled back and Dave Dresden was coming to town. And I asked, could Dave Dresden be on my show and come play a set on my show? And he came and played my bedroom and was like, okay, so you never know, those connections you make, like you said, can lead to where we are almost 13 years
I
later,
know.
2,400 episodes later, all this
Yeah.
multiple cities, and how working. And you're going to be going to ADE this year, aren't you?
Yes.
I thought I
First
heard about
time.
that. Yes, and so are we. We're super excited. We
Yay.
we have some stuff we'll be able to announce here shortly about ADE, but we're definitely going to connect it at ADE. And
Awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
super excited for, from the beginning of 2009 to, coming up to 2022, 13 years of being able to go to ADE for my first time with
Nice.
my brand, with what we've
Yes.
been working on, with the connections that we've made. And it's so exciting. That's, I feel, is still just the tip of the iceberg for everything.
Oh, it is.
you know?
It's just going to keep getting better. So.
And so and ADE and Winter Music Conference are generally a lot about business, but then there's the parties at night.
Right.
And going into business, what has been the best business decision in favor of your producer career that you've made?
From a business perspective, I think, gosh, you know, I I think it's probably doing what I'm doing right now, because honestly, when I first started, I did not have any sense of it as a business. I mean, intellectually I did, but things were just coming at me and I was taking them. And there was no goal, there was no it was just like, oh, I've got another mix. Oh, I've got another mix. Oh, I've got another mix. And so I was just kind of running the treadmill like that. And then it stopped and then I didn't know what to do. I was like, now what do I do? So I started DJing. But, you know, circling all the way back around, and then I went off and I did band and this and that and all the other stuff. Circling back around now, having all that behind me and go now saying, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And moving forward with that, it just everything just seems to be falling into place. So I
You
guess
know,
just knowing what the hell I want to do.
I think, yeah, knowing what to do. That was my thing. I think I was 21 years old, working on a public access show, and the girl I was dating at the time, she says, "What do you want to do with your life?" And just blurted out of my head. I didn't even know where it came from. Said, "I want to be an executive producer." Now I
Did you
was a
know what
public.
that was?
I was working on a public access hip hop television show, but I was a real kind of more over glorified production assistant at that time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I knew I don't know why I said it. And then it was like years later, I actually started executing shows and stuff. About 5 years later, I went and started doing that. But where I was going with that was that there is no, as a producer, it's not a B C D E F G route. It's you might learn the ABCs and go, I know something about this business, but then all of a sudden you might jump and learn X, and then you
Yep.
might learn P, and then you might
Yep.
learn J, and then K. You're like,
Yep.
oh, maybe there's some order in this L M N. Oh, I'm on a track. Nope, I'm all the way to Z now.
Yep.
And when you got to put it all together as the alphabet, and then they come and go, hey, that was the alphabet, but there's this numbers thing. And that goes for infinity. So you're always learning. You
Yeah.
want to get your ABCs down, and they don't fall into order in place. But
Yeah.
over time, they do start to make sense. You can't. There
Yeah.
is no method to the madness of when things are going to fall in order. You can't say, okay, first I'm going to do this, then I'm
Well,
going to
yeah,
do
and
this,
especially
then I'm
because
going to
I
do
didn't
this.
even know I wanted to be a producer, right?
Yeah.
Like I thought I wanted to be a singer. So, so who knew? I had no idea I wanted to be a producer. And as much as I still love singing, I think I like producing more. So,
Mhm. What are three things that create inspiration for you?
um, I get most of my inspiration, like musically speaking, just by listening to other music
Mhm.
because like you'll just and especially and I guess goes back to again where the DJing comes in for me because you'll listen to a track and you can listen to it and you pick it out for your set or whatever, right? And then sometimes you put the track in your set and you're like, oh God, what was I thinking? But often what happens is you'll put a track in your set and then you just be like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And then you play it again and you're like, you like it even more. And then you're going, "I I got to make something like this. This is like really I'm feeling this." So that's where the inspiration almost always starts for me. I mean, I to a point sometimes, if I get new gear and I'm playing with it and you hear a sound and you're like, "Ooh, that's really cool. I have to make something with that." Um, but mostly it's just like I just hear songs and they make me want to dance. And I started making dance music because I love dancing and I want to make people dance. So or not even just dance, it can just be like doing this, right? Like sometimes you just need to sit back and have your cocktail and bop your head. But I, it's, yeah, I mean, it's like I'll just hear things in my head and I'll just be like, oh my God, I have to get that down now. So,
And when you produce music, when you're making a track song, do you do it with the intention of making a popular track, or do you make music solely to satisfy yourself? And the success is a nice side effect.
it's kind of funny. I actually, because I grew up in a small town with like
Seattle?
literally no when I'm talking small I didn't grow up in Seattle actually I
I know,
switched
I'm
to
joking.
Cornish there but when I was a kid like like 6, 7, 8 I lived in a town in the east coast of Canada population 1,400 people we had one AM station I mean you got things like Neil Diamond and just like top of the pop like top 40 period like so like for the first 10 years of my life, I mean, other than the fact that thank God my parents had good taste in music, I don't think if I turned on the radio, that's what I was hearing was pop.
Mhm.
I was hearing. So fast forward, that was really ingrained in me. And I did a lot of work to try to get away from that. So these people who are trying to make pop music, I'm like, oh, get it away from me. Because it's so saccharine. Like I can't even listen to it now, right?
Mhm.
But so I don't worry about having pop in my music. It seeps in whether I know it or not. I worry about having it out of my music because I'm trying to create a certain sound, and if it gets too poppy, it's just not going to work. So, um, yeah, so that's my biggest challenge is keeping the pop away from my sound and um, staying true to the actual sound I'm trying to achieve.
And you know, producing music stands synonymous with spending countless hours behind the computer or behind the gear producing the beats. What do you do in your free time to stay fit?
Oh, I work out every day. Seriously, like, I mean, my day does not start until I've either done a power walk. Um, it's summer, I've been doing tennis a few times a week. I have an indoor workout regimen that I do if it's raining or I can't go outside. But every morning it's coffee, workout, shower, breakfast. Boom. And if I don't get to start my day till 2 in the afternoon, then so be it. I'm gonna get my workout in and I'm gonna get my breakfast in.
Awesome. I basically I mentioned earlier that you know, my partner, my girlfriend, she's a physical trainer, Pilates instructor. And, you know, one of the great things is just vicariously, I've actually have lost weight because I spend a lot of time in front of the computer doing work or doing interviews. And there
Hmm.
would be times I'd wake up from 9 a.m. and I don't move from this chair. I mean, maybe to get up and get something to eat, but I'm in
Yeah.
this chair till 1 a.m.
Yeah.
doing work. And this is not just once or twice a week. This is frequent
All day,
daily
every
almost.
day. Yeah.
You know, so I
Hmm.
was getting a little pudgy around the midsection. But no, I like the fact. But I ended up getting an Oculus last year, and
Oh,
so you know, finding out that I can actually work out like playing Beat Saber and lose 300 calories in 35 minutes, you know, is a great workout for me. And it also got me to launch our VR nightclubs as well. Kind of a little segue there, but
right.
you know, it just was really awesome being able to you know, figure out what do I do to stay physically fit when I have a sit down job. When I
Hmm.
used to work for Apple, one of the last retail jobs I had, I went for Apple, but then I moved into Apple corporate. But I was always walking around the store all the time, talking to
Right.
everyone, and that was
Right.
we
Using
didn't have step
energy.
counters
Yeah.
then. But if you look at how many
Hmm.
steps you take in an 8 hour day walking around a retail store,
Yep.
you know, there's a ton of them. And you know, when I got my office desk job, it was like, okay, now I got to go downstairs and get my lunch and eat at my desk and do my work at my desk and just, you know, so it's key that people do take that
The
physical
evil desk.
time, the evil desk. But I've always thought about getting a standing desk too. You
Yeah, I was
know,
just
and
talking
working
to a
from
friend of mine. He just reset his studio up for a standing desk and he's really liking it. So,
yeah, just it just helps to keep that blood flowing and that
hmm.
energy moving. If you could give one production tip or insight to new producers out there, what would that be?
I would say follow your instinct the best that you can. Um, go with your gut. So, meaning you've got 20 million options there. Don't get option paralysis over the kick. Don't be like, well, this kick, oh, but I like that kick. I like that kick too, and like that. Oh, but I better check these other 60 kicks to make sure there's not one that I don't like better. No, find the one. If you, oh, I like that. Start. That's how you get going. You got to start.
You got to start. You got to start. And you know, you mentioned the ability to have, you know, 60 kicks. Obviously, you can have thousands and thousands. Now, when my brother my father built my brother's kind of home studio when I was a kid growing up, I got a chance at like the age of 8 to be playing with keyboards, synthesizers, 4-track, 8-track recorders, rack mounts, and all this stuff. Learning about MIDI at 8 years old, literally reading the books
Fun.
and like
Wow.
when the original books translated Japanese to English and didn't really make
Oh,
sense.
yes, yes,
You
yes.
know, you're like, okay,
I
and
don't
I'm an
understand what
8 year
this
old
means.
kid going, okay, and then they come in and my brothers want to beat me up because I'm playing with their gear, but I'd say, look at what I can do, and they go, well, how'd you do that? And I'm like, well, I read the book and I just hit the button and it made this effect. And they go, okay, cool, and they would learn how to program different effects. But you know, it's always interesting to see how fast technology moves and the access that we were talking about at our fingertips now, where
Yeah.
we went from vinyl, there weren't so many vinyl albums, to now it's digital. But technology moves really fast in production land. And if
Yep.
you could think of something that's not on the market today, but in your vision would be really amazing to be out there, what would that be?
Oh, I'm so bad at that. Um, because I can't even keep up with everything that is out there. I'm like, wait, this does what? Wait. I mean, I have so much gear in my studio that I haven't even tapped yet. It's like I I I the things that people are coming up with today blows my mind, honestly. But I know that there's an answer to this because I was just thinking that the other day. I wish this would do this, and I can't think of what that was now. I'm sorry. I'm going to draw a blank on that one.
That's okay. No, you're absolutely correct. Like, I think we were talking about pre-show or earlier in the show that, it moves so fast that, now I'm using a product like Restream to do my interviews, or
Right.
there's hardware gear that I use when I'm on site. There's Mevo cameras that I have an array, like 5 different camera setups that I use, varying on what production level I'm doing. And I know in 6 months there's going to be something new and
Right.
something new. And, you got to kind of use the toys or use the tools you're given to play with, and work with that. If not, kind of save up and get the right tools. But, now, I mean, when I first bought, I had back in the early 2000s, I had a Roland MC505 and a Roland SP808, the sequencer and sampler. And that was hardware because there really wasn't software. There was software. There was like Fruity Loops.
Right. Right.
Fruity Loops 3, I think, was around then. I think I still have the compact Armada laptop with Fruity Loops 3 on it underneath my bed in storage, like as an archive. Okay, check out this old computer I had. Long story short, technology moves so fast that it went definitely from a hardware-based world to a software-based world, and everyone be able to get those synthesizers, the plugins now, download it. But I think I like what you said is, if you're going to choose that one and stick with it, use it, master it,
Yes.
feel
Yeah. And
comfortable.
well, and it's kind of a balance too, because like on the one hand, you want to understand the gear that you have and use it to its max. On the
Mhm.
other hand, you don't want to miss out on that opportunity of being able to explore something you didn't even know that you wanted. And I think that that's the kind of the awe part, right? Is where you're like, wow, I didn't even know I needed this, and now I can't live without it, right? So so you have to find that balance between knowing your gear, understanding how it works so you can get the job done, but then also kind of knowing when it's time to kind of come up for air and be like, what else is out there? What else do I have? So like I said, I ended up with more gear than I needed. Some people were very generous to me. And I'm still, so I kind of do that with my own gear right now. I'm like, I dig in, I find the thing and I get it going. And then I'm like, what else is there in here in my little computer that I can pull up? So it's fun.
Yeah, I always love getting the new toys. It's
Hmm.
always fun getting new toys. But obviously, I do this when a lot of podcasters ask me how much money should I spend on my podcasting studio? What do I get? And I'm saying, well, how much money do you have? And you make it work
Start
with it.
there.
If you have to use your camera on your phone, use your
Yep.
camera on your phone. If you have to use the
Yep.
camera on your laptop, great. You don't have to go out and buy a $500 mic. You don't got to go buy a huge lighting gear.
Right.
Usually about $200-300 you can be set up with a couple lights and a microphone, and maybe get a good backdrop behind you, even if it's just a black curtain. Put that up behind
I
you and put
mean,
yourself
the
against that.
biggest, the most important piece of gear you have is within you, because it's what it is that you're trying to say. If you start there, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to convey here? If you start there, you'll start to know what it is that you need. I hear this beat in my head and it has a kick, a snare, a hat. So I'm going to need a drum machine, and it's got this kind of a bass sound. So I'm going to need to pull in, oh, it's got to be a live bass. Can't, got to pull in a live bass. You're just, it will inform what you need. And then you don't need the rest of it. I don't hear an orchestra right now, so I don't really need the orchestra sounds, right? So yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same on the production side over here. It's like, use what you got. And maybe you don't need 15 cameras. Maybe you don't need all, but know your
Yeah, and
subject matter. That's the other
if
thing.
you have 15 cameras, know what to do with them, right? Nothing is worse than having stuff that's just there, like gratuitously filling up your mix.
Yeah, it's funny that the one common shot that we used to start with a long time ago was the shot of the camera looking down at the DJ gear,
Yeah,
and it was cool in the beginning, 13 years ago, but now I see that shot, and everyone does that shot now. It's like,
right.
do you know the DJ hands? They mix and then their hands are away from it. Usually, they're usually that you're going to see them searching for tracks more on the thing than you will
Yes.
see them doing any of this. And even if they are, they might be turning this and turning that and fine tune. And then
I was just
go ahead.
having this conversation with a friend of mine. We're like talking about how mostly what you're doing in between is looking for the next record. That's so much of your
Exactly.
job is looking for the next record. Oh, I got to play this one. Where is that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't even focus on that angle anymore,
Yeah.
because it's just like, why am I filming
It's
that? It
only
was,
fun when something's happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
when something's happening and nobody's going like this,
Mm-hmm.
like jazz
Right.
fingers or anything down on the decks, unless it was a live, if it was a live production element like a keyboard
Yes.
or a drum machine or sampler, that then
Yeah.
I would definitely capture that shot
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's something happening that I think would be really cool. But other than
Well,
that,
and
it's like,
it's fun sometimes too to watch. Like I do enjoy watching how a DJ mixes. Now those only happen while they're actually mixing.
mhm.
But like, coming from vinyl myself, one of my favorite things to do was to ride the records. So how long can I ride the record, right? Before I have to pull up, like either it ends or it's like, oh, gotta go. But that was always a fun thing for me. And when you get it in that pocket and you're riding it for a really long time, then you're like, ooh, what else? Then you start playing with some other stuff, right? Now, this, of course, with, the advent of digital mixing, of you can ride the record all day long, right? You just sync it up and off you go. But I think, that's why so many people are really experimenting more with the effects and more with like all the other things you can do on top of the record. I think you have to really know your records to do it right. You can't just like start turning knobs or you're going to kind of mess the track up. But I think if you know your records and you can really manipulate them in a way where you can basically do the remix on the fly, I mean, that's kind of fun. So
Mhm.
so that's worth looking at.
And speaking of remixes, I had a note in here to talk with you about remixes, and you have a passion for doing remixes, correct?
Oh yeah. That's what got me into this whole thing to begin with.
Where was the weirdest moment that you've ever heard one of your remixes play?
Over the phone, somebody was at a club in Seattle and I was in San Francisco and they were like, "This is your mix."
Yeah, I have kind of a small similar story to that. Is that one night we were at a club here. There was a prominent little club here called Sea Sound Lounge, and there was an artist. I didn't know who he was at the time, but the artist's name that was playing was Chuck Love,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I didn't know how phenomenal this guy was. I didn't know what to expect, but one night we're sitting there at the club and he's playing and he's doing all his stuff. He's playing every instrument. He's singing over the tracks. He's doing all this. And then this song that I'd heard that a friend of mine had given to me earlier that year came on. And it was his Dancing at Night, or it was the Jimster remix, Dancing at Night.
I love
And he starts
Jimster.
playing that track. And I'm just,
Hmm.
I mean, that one will pump me up every single time. But I grabbed my phone and there was a girl behind the booth with him. And I walk up to her and I'm like, hey, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. She kind of looks at me like, who are you? What do you want?
Hmm.
I'm like, and I'm looking at my phone. I go, is this him? Is this his song? Is this him playing this right now? And she goes, yeah. And I go, no way. And it was funny because that was actually, now that I remember the timing of that, because it was 2008 when that happened, because I went and saw him at Winter Music Conference 2009
Wow.
when he
Okay.
was outside getting ready for one of his shows. I specifically went to his show to see Chuck Love play at an event
Amazing.
at Winter Music Conference, and just
Nice.
phenomenal artist. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
using that mobile device and somebody's using it to call you up and say, your track's
Yeah.
playing. And
Your
I'm like,
track's
your track.
playing. Listen, listen.
I don't think,
It was my Armand Van Helden remix.
all
That's
right.
the one that was playing, right? And I said, "Are you sure? Does it have the horns? Does it have the guitar?" I'm like grilling her, right? It's like, oh, okay, yep, that's mine.
Yeah, and I don't know if even Shazam was created back then. I can't remember what year Shazam came out.
I
But
think, I think Shazam came out maybe prior to 2007. I remember because I hadn't moved from San Francisco yet when it first came out. So
we got this wonderful thing called the interwebs that we use during the shows.
oh yeah, check
Pull
it.
up
Let's find
and
out.
find out like when. And come on, there has to be a Wikipedia. Shazam. There we go. Initial release 2002.
Yeah, hello.
Wow.
I knew it had to be before that.
I did not know it was that. I did not know it was
But I
around.
think, you know what? I think it was based, was it based out of San Francisco originally?
London based.
Oh, it's
Shazam
London.
has
Okay.
been owned by Apple Inc. since 2018. I
Well,
guess Apple bottom.
well, yeah, I think I knew that. But yeah, yeah, I remember using Shazam. I thought it was a great invention. And I will say that I really liked when Apple bought them and they started linking to being able to just buy the music
Yeah.
because these were all the problems, of course, that we were having, with radio not telling, you'd listen to the radio, you'd hear the thing, you didn't know where to buy it. Like just finding ways to get it so it was easy for people to buy the music. Now, of course, it's to stream it, but at least you're going to like it and stick it on your playlist or something, and that artist is going to get paid. It's it's harder and harder for these artists to get paid. We got that's that's the one. That's the piece of gear I want. I want the the get paid button when you
Get paid, but well, I do have something to talk with you about in regards to that. Have you looked into doing NFTs for your productions, for your music that you release? Is
I
that
have
something that's on the
been
horizon?
reading about it. I have, I I've been reading like so one of our artists here in Portland has been doing a lot of that is RAC, and so I've been kind of following what he's been up to, and with that respect, um, it just feels to me like with the music, it's about having visuals. So you need to pair up with someone who's doing visuals, right? So, and I have friends that do visuals, so good idea.
Well, I mean, we're looking at the NFT space for us as that taking our interviews, like say your interview that we're doing right now, the interview we're doing with
Hmm.
you, and making this interview an NFT. And then we would take
Ah,
you and we would add you into the NFT. We'd add your wallet as part of the NFT. So that
right,
way we could go out there and say, hey, we have this NFT. It's a collector's item. We only got 20 of them or so many of them
right,
available.
right,
If you're a
right,
fan of this artist, buy the NFT. And then that
right,
fan holds on to that NFT of the episode, and
hmm,
it obviously is protected via blockchain. But
right,
anytime they would pass it along or sell it,
right,
you would obviously get
right.
something in return for
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I
It would be
love the whole
awesome.
blockchain concept,
Mhm.
really. I think again, like when you're talking again about paying artists, and I would say not just musicians, but oh my God, I mean, like painters and fine artists, man, they really get the raw end of the stick when their paintings blow. I mean, who just licensed all the Keith Haring stuff? Everywhere I turn, there's a Keith Haring something. I mean, Keith's not getting this. Maybe his estate is. I don't know, but it's
Mhm.
he. It's like whoever's doing it, I'm not very happy with because they're they're really overdoing it with him. Anyway, that's another story. But I love the blockchain idea, and I love the idea that you can your music can get shared and shared and shared again, which was again another problem, like mixtapes and all this stuff and royalties and But the more you share it, the more you get paid. What like that's a lovely concept,
Yeah.
because then the whole point of doing the music is to have people listen to it, right? And you want people to share it. I don't want people to hoard my music. I want them to share it with all their friends and their friends' friends. So, yeah, I mean, I think that whole concept is fantastic.
And it's interesting because, when you have that NFT, if I have the NFT of a song and I'm listening to that song because I have the NFT version of it, once I share that, I guess I don't have that song in my library anymore. So I'm not sure if like NFTs of songs would come with. I can see a piece of artwork, a piece of being a 1-to-1. Like I had this piece of artwork, I'm selling it off. Okay, cool. You don't
Hmm.
get to keep that picture in your house anymore once you sell it to somebody,
Right.
unless you take a picture of it and then put the picture up in your house.
Right.
But if somebody were,
But it's not the same thing.
yeah, I mean, I have an interview actually later tonight with Purple Fly, and they are the world's first NFT record label. That I'm be talking with them tonight about that whole process. I'm so busy, I sometimes forget who I'm interviewing sometimes and who's coming up. But yeah, I'll ask about that. But it'd be interesting. I think the question I'm going to ask him tonight is, if you buy an NFT of a track, do you get a copy of that track so you can at least keep the song in your library? You just don't own the NFT version of it anymore. And what does that look like? Like
Well, I mean, I think that that's the whole point, from my understanding, is the song goes with the
with the
NFT.
NFT.
So that's it. You
Yeah,
you don't get to keep it. It
yeah,
goes, and that's what makes it precious,
yeah.
right? Is it's only there's only that one or 20 copies or whatever. Whoever has the key to it is that's there.
Which
That's all.
which almost
That's
puts it back to almost a vinyl kind of world if you think
yeah.
about it. Like if I
Hmm.
released 1,000 of these, and think about it, if these machines out there, like the Denon or Pioneer, goes and says, look, you can only play a track in here, like if it's or it's recognized as an NFT or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
I guess they
Right.
couldn't
Right.
do that
Hmm.
because if I'm playing it for home use, then you're labeled for home use. But it'd be interesting to see how that'll play to lock down. I saw that Twitter a few months ago took it, and if you had an NFT image and you put it up as one of your profile picture, it gave you a special icon saying this is an NFT image on your
Right.
profile. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays in artwork. Like I can share pictures all day long, but if I'm sharing that I'm putting up that I have the actual NFT of this, people are like, whoa, you actually
Right.
do own a Banksy NFT,
Right.
or
Right. Hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, cool. Um,
Right. And there's a
if
soundtrack that goes with
there's a soundtrack that goes with it, yeah.
it.
If someone here's a question, kind of switching gears just a little bit because we're just about towards the end here. If someone were to write a biography about you, what do you think the title should be?
Um, for lack of anything better, I just keep coming back to Disco Queen because that's what I am in my heart of hearts.
Disco Queen. All
Just
right.
Disco Queen. Yep.
Disco Queen, the Tyler Stone
Yep.
story.
Exactly. The Tyler Stone story. Disco Queen.
Well, is there anything you'd like to say to our DJ Sessions fans before we let you get back to work out there? Down there, or
Um, up out here.
out there?
Yeah, actually, just thanks for being here, guys. It's been
Mhm.
fun. And also, get ready. I've got some new stuff coming. I've got my next release is going to be Moving On. It's coming out on Large. And I think there's going to be a remix by Mo Cream, which is going to be off the charts. And that's probably look for that probably in the fall. And if you want more fun stuff, you can head over to my Mixcloud and check out some of my All That Glitters.
Awesome. The best place for people to go to find out information for you is
TylerStoneMusic.com.
the website, tylerstonemusic.com. Awesome. Be sure to check her out, DJ Sessions fans. Lots of good stuff going on there. Like you said, the All That Glitters, the Don't Count Me Out, the latest single you just came out with the Gem Fatales.
Yes.
More remixes, more music coming out all the time over there at
Oh, and
tylerstonemusic.com.
don't
Go ahead.
forget about the David Harness remix of Don't Count Me Out,
The
which is
David,
off the charts also. So
is that on your SoundCloud?
my SoundCloud, I can put it on there.
Well, you got the two Don't Count Me Out, the Disco House and
Yeah.
they're two radio edits, but one's the
Yeah.
Disco
Yeah.
House radio edit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still torn
You know
between
why?
it.
Because those I'm posting those from the label. So
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And don't forget, there's an exclusive Tyler Stone guest mix for the DJ sessions that'll be up as well here shortly. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on the DJ sessions. We
Thank
look forward to
you.
following up with you in the future and for the foreseeable future. And I just know
So
it's
much
gonna
fun.
be a great time. So much stuff coming out. Thank you again for coming on the DJ
Thanks,
session.
Darren. Okay.
You're
Take
welcome.
care.
On that note, don't forget to go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere. We're pretty much all over the place. But we're not all over the place because we got a lot of stuff going on at thedjsessions.com. And this is Darren. That's Tyler Stone coming in from Portland, Oregon. I'm in Seattle, Washington. We're at the virtual studios for the virtual sessions. And remember, on the DJ sessions, the music never stops.